Alright guys, before we get into the fun stuff, we have to talk about something incredibly lame. After a buttload of requests, I decided to include the CGRE movies in my Resident Evil retrospective, and ended up actually having a lot of fun with them. But what's not fun is the fact that Sony has copyright claimed all of these videos so far, and will likely do the same exact thing for the video you're watching right now. At first, both of my previous reviews were blocked in all countries, and then after a very long dispute process, they were simply marked as having copyrighted content, which means I can't make any money off of them, despite the fact that they 100% fall under fair use. And this is my conundrum. I understand that YouTube is skewed heavily towards the big companies making copyright claims, and my status as a very, very small channel means I don't have the kind of pull it would take to challenge these claims. So sadly, I have to rely on the support of my viewers. If this video going live didn't give you a hint, I'll just be straight up with you. I think videos like this fall well within the rules of the platform, and no matter how many get demonetized, I refuse to stop making them. But as a small content creator, I live and die by my ad revenue, and it seems clear I'm not getting any from these. So if you like the idea of more Resident Evil movie reviews, or you just enjoy my work here, please consider supporting me on Patreon. As some of you know, I refuse to take brand deals or produce sponsored content, so the people scrolling by on screen are the only thing allowing me to keep this up. If you're able to contribute even $1 a month, it would mean the world to me, plus you'd get access to my videos weeks before they go live, and the ability to influence what happens here on the channel. If not, I completely understand, and rest assured, I appreciate the hell out of you just watching and, fingers crossed, enjoying the content I put up. Well, I think that's all the e-begging I can do in one sitting, so yeah, my Patreon will be linked in the description, and depending on how poor I am when this goes live, maybe links to jars of my bathwater. Well, anyways, thanks for your time, and let's get this damn video started already. So we finally made it to the end of this Resident Evil CG movie trilogy. You know, I never intended on covering these things when I started the retrospective, but so many of you asked I honestly couldn't resist. And along the way, I had a pretty decent time with some really entertaining movies. Luckily, I had watched both Damnation and Degeneration right when they launched, so it was easy to just jump in and figure out what I did and did not like about them. But until today, I had never sat down with Vendetta and given it a watch. As the bookend of these movies, you'd figure this would be the culmination of everything Capcom learned about making feature films, and it is, in all the most ridiculous ways. What's up guys, I'm Jared from Avalanche Reviews. Welcome to the Resident Evil Retrospective. RE Vendetta dropped into US Blu-ray players in 2017 and kind of connects the events of RE 6 and 7. The general setup sees Chris Redfield hunting down a bioarms dealer named Glenn Arias and getting a unit completely wiped again, which leads to a reveal that this Arias guy is developing a strain of virus that not only creates zombies, but allows a person to specify a target for the Walking Dead to attack. Which, if I'm not mistaken, was the exact plot of Damnation. I don't know, these movies are all starting to bleed together in my mind. Yeah, but who cares about that? We've come full circle and are finally getting actual zombies in an RE movie. Hooray for progression. And by progression, I mean we have progressed to the place where Capcom was at in the early 2000s. Yay. After the events of the intro, we check up on Rebecca Chambers, who has left the STARS unit to practice some kind of medical research and apparently has risen to the top of her field in the short amount of time since the Raccoon City outbreak. Through some exposition, we find out that there have been pockets of zombie outbreaks in the US, and Rebecca's team is trying to reverse engineer a vaccine. And then the movie realizes it's been more than a few minutes since anyone was devoured on screen. One of Arias' goons essentially zombifies the whole building, and even our girl Rebecca gets infected. And in a bout of this shit could only happen in a movie luck, her antivirus had finished being produced just a few minutes ago in the next room. So Miss White Beret saves herself from chowing down on her co-workers, but now she's got to survive a building full of people wanting to do the same to her. Of course, Chris and his team charge in at the last minute and save old Becca, but not before Capcom goes back on a full game's worth of character building. By the end of RE0, Rebecca was a lean, mean zombie killing machine, and here she is cowering away from just one or two of the things. Now, I'm not normally the kind of guy to get hung up on this kind of stuff, shut up, I'm not, but it did gnaw at the back of my brain for a bit. Anyways, our little celebrity couple, who I like to call Rebecca, are now on their way to find Leon because, and I shit you not, one of them said this kind of reminded them of Las Plagas. No joke, the only reason Leon's in the movie is because these two couldn't just pick up a phone and call the guy. But when they do find Leon, he's essentially just playing Chris's role from RE6, which is spending long periods of time getting sloshed at a bar in a vaguely European setting, which I guess isn't the worst trope in the world to use, but why would he be so depressed? I mean, the ending of RE6 wasn't exactly a loss for him, was it?
Who's the bad guy here? Arius, and it's our mission to bring his ass down. Your mission, not mine. God damn it, Leon!
Stop!
But hey, I'm not gonna let 2 instances of this shit keep me from enjoying a movie. Besides, what really bothers me is that Chris has absolutely no sympathy for Leon's situation, despite it being a mirror image of what Chris was doing not even a full year ago. At the very least, this could have made for one line of interesting dialogue where Chris lets Leon know he knows where he's coming from. But nope, instead the two get ready to beat the shit out of each other until Rebecca gives a speech about the greater good or some other nonsense. And then is promptly kidnapped for no other reason than the fact that she looks like the bad guy's dead wife. Kind of, now that I think about it, no, she doesn't at all. But hey, I guess a bad guy's gotta have some type of driving goal, even if it's ridiculous. Well, the rest of the movie is a race against the clock as Rebecca is somehow infected with a different strain of the virus she just immunized herself from, and New York gets a taste of the old zombie outbreak treatment. And if it wasn't obvious so far, I'm gonna go ahead and level with you. Vendetta's story is pants on head retarded, and even when it's at its best, our cast is still acting way outside of their established characters. Hell, they could have done something really interesting with Leon's whole drunken depression thing, but he's cured of it in the same exact scene that it's established he's suffering from it.
Oh, look who it is. The BSAA's golden boy and Dr. High Hopes.
No joke, he goes from drunken, I don't care about anyone but myself, to a sober, we have to save everyone in less than 2 minutes. I will admit I was kind of interested in the bad guy though, since he had a cool backstory involving some assholes drone bombing his wedding, killing his wife and family, but his cartoon character levels of crazy when he kidnaps Rebecca and tries to force her to marry him ruined my interest. That is, until he reveals he's been keeping his wife's rotting arm with him all these years.
Rebecca. Meet Sarah.
And then after that I was permanently on Team Arias. Now, I could list a lot of downsides with the story, like a lot, but we'd be here forever. I will, however, air my biggest grievance. In this movie, they established some type of vaccine from Rebecca's blood, but instead of just preventing people from getting infected, it also reverses the infection, which is just stupid. There's this one scene where they release this stuff into the air over an infected New York, and all the zombies lurching in the streets suddenly just go back to normal. Okay, listen here, movie Capcom, because maybe you haven't been paying attention for the entire period you've been making RE games. The appeal and horror of zombies in the series is the fact that they have all died but got back up to eat the flesh of the living. Like I keep screeching, it's not scary if it's just a person. Plus, what the hell happened to all the people injured by the infection or resulting explosions or firefights with the cops? For one whole scene, I was just imagining a zombie covered in third-degree burns getting cured and coming to in a hell of indescribable pain, not knowing why the hell they were on fire. But like I said before, if we kept this up, we'd be here all day. So now that we've covered this story, let's talk action. And luckily, this is a language that Vendetta is fluent in. Pretty much an entire 3/4 of the movie's plot was just there to set up the climax where Leon and Chris steamroll every zombie in New York, and you know what? That's a-okay with me. The last 15 minutes of the movie are jam-packed with some of the dumbest action movie nonsense I think I've ever seen, and I wouldn't change a single solitary second of it. These guys go from literally powerbombing members of the marginalized dead to hurling motorcycles at the result of Arias merging with his dad. Don't read into that. As far as the movie's CG goes, it's definitely the best looking entry in this little series. Facial animations are much smoother and less robotic than Damnation, and the motion capping is perfect. One thing I really liked was how Rebecca's always wearing green and white. Kind of reminded me how the characters from Power Rangers were only ever seen in clothes that represented their costumes when they transformed. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm still stoked we're watching a piece of Resident Evil media with zombies in it. Shouldn't that be the norm? Yes it should, but we don't live in a world that makes any kind of sense. If I had one actual real-life complaint, it would be what seems to be varying render qualities regarding faces. In some scenes, these characters' faces look damn near photorealistic, but when there's a lot of bright light in the environment, their faces can look fake and sort of rubbery. But hey, the important thing to consider is that all the budget went into sweet-looking action scenes, so Let's get deep into those. At about the 75% mark, it becomes abundantly clear that these guys cranked the stupid movie set piece knob to 11, and at least from a dumb popcorn movie point of view, that's probably the best thing they could have done. Now don't get me wrong, I would definitely prefer a totally different Resident Evil cinematic universe. Hell, if I had my way, the next RE movie would be one long atmospheric setup to a jump scare that never comes. But as a guy who grew up during the action movie boom of the 80s and 90s, I'm okay with some ludicrous levels of cheese. For example, you guys remember the Cerberus, right? And yes, I said Cerberus. I have no idea why they started naming them zombie dogs. That's dumb as hell. But anyways, you guys remember them, right? Nimble little threats that could outmaneuver you if you weren't careful. Well, now they can bite off a full-grown man's head in a single notch and outrun a fucking Ducati at full speed. This is what you can expect from Vendetta, and maybe some of you will turn your nose up at the idea of a 4-minute John Wick scene where Chris and Leon use literal gun kata to take down a hallway full of zombies. But to be completely honest, if you didn't just get fully erect at what I described, I don't care to hear your opinion on much of anything. This is a dumb, hokey action movie, and you should be 100% okay with that. Sure, I hope one day we finally get a motion picture that truly represents the quiet dread, intense atmosphere of the first and best RE games. But until that imaginary day, let's be honest here, this is exactly what the public wanted, or at least you could understand why Capcom would think that. I mean, think about it, every successive Resident Evil game that chose to ramp up the action continued to sell better and better. Hell, if it weren't for RE7 and 2's remake, I assume the next movie would have just been 2 hours of Chris killing every living being on Earth with his bare boulder-punching hands. You know, I got a near infinite number of messages, tweets, and comments warning me that this would be the worst movie in the series, and I guess maybe they're right in a traditional RE sort of way, but not even I can be an unpleasable fan of the originals all of the time. For the duration of this movie, I was content to just sit back, turn off my brain, and enjoy some absolute nonsense for a while. So if you ask me, this movie gets rated on 2 separate scales. If you really liked how Degeneration stayed relatively close to the horror movie feel of the classic titles in the series, well, you might want to save yourself 2 hours of anger. But if you thought seeing Leon fistfight a Russian woman while Lickers ate Special Forces members in Damnation, welcome aboard the good ship entertainment. For anyone that falls in the middle of that spectrum, I say go ahead and check this one out. Worst case scenario, you only kill a few brain cells. Don't come in expecting a story that makes any kind of sense, and do expect to shovel lethal amounts of popcorn into your mouth. Well guys, this had to be one of the most ridiculous, over-the-top, dumb action movies I've ever seen in my life, and I'm more than happy I finally checked it out. Thank you for keeping up with the retrospective up to this point, and for those of you holding out for a new entry covering the games, well, expect a true return to form very, very soon. But until then, thank you for watching the Resident Evil Retrospective. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. I have the rest of the videos in the retrospective linked here on screen, and if you want to support more full series reviews like this, well, hop on by my Patreon and join ranks with some of the most amazing people on Earth. Well, I'll see all of you guys later, so until then, minasan, mite itadaki arigatou gozaimasu.